Want your job back?
No.
Too bad, you can't have it.
The whole point of really everybody else on the planet on this show is how does House relate to them? And the guest cast, we get we get a nice moment of that. But the regulars, we get to milk that. But we wanted to bring in some fresh faces. We didn't want to just keep doing Cameron has a crush on House over and over again.
It's refreshing to bring in new energies. The audience got used to sort of the same formula for 3 years, and we kept them on edge, but I think that the audience was ready for a change, and our characters had dramatic, exits from the show last season.
I don't really care if Foreman stays or goes, but
You're fired.
We knew we were sort of boxing ourselves into a corner, having all of House's team quit, and how are we going to handle that?
My resignation letter.
House just doing job interviews sounded entertaining for about the first 45 seconds. And it just suddenly struck me.
Who is this man?
We could do what these reality shows do, and most TV shows you can't, but we got a character here that allowed us to do it.
I'm not gonna fire you every time you get a wrong answer.
Neville Chamberlain.
You're fired.
A guy who wouldn't just interview 30 people and hire 3 of them. He'd hire 30 people and then fire 27 of them.
Rodi, you're fired. $13.32.39. Get a SOMA, an EEG, MRI, and angiogram. How many do you think that Oswald acted alone?
If by alone you mean that he was unaware that the CIA...
Oh, shut up.
Well, the survivor angle, from my point of view, selfishly, which is how I think, was pretty harrowing, actually, because I was essentially having to perform to a live audience, not a big one, but 40. It was a live audience every day, and one of the supposed advantages of doing a single-camera drama is that you're spared the pressure of a live audience, and there was I having to act every day, and imagining, of course, that they were all sitting there with their arms folded, thinking, is that the best he could do?
Thank you all for coming to Tribal Council.
For the other actors, it's of course actually incredibly similar to an actor's usual experience. There were 40 actors going for 3 roles. That's the actor's lot. For all I know, they went to 40 different people to play House. But they only came up with 1, unless they've got 2 more waiting in the wings, which would be great.
We all knew we'd have at least a few episodes on the show, and just having 1 episode on House is a really positive thing for any actor. So we were happy to have that, and then when we realized that it would become a kind of tense situation with everyone wondering whether they would last and who would end up being part of the last 2 or the last 3, we didn't know what that would be. When we realized that was kind of awkward, we just decided the only way to deal with it was through having a sense of humor. So we just laughed through the first 12 episodes.
Although it was not a conscious decision, I must say. We didn't say, this is tense, let's laugh about it. It was sort of a natural, I think we all got along. We all got along shockingly well.
It was really sort of nerve-wracking and fun to meet everybody and start to be a part of this family that you didn't know if it was going to be your permanent job or you were going to be gone in a week or anything like that. And I think, especially Eddie and Cal and Olivia and Peter and I all bonded really fast because we were all in this crazy position of like, what's going to happen?
Oh, forgot to mention. Final case. Get it right, you're hired. Runner-up will be decided strictly on some definition of merit.
I think we were fortunate in that you could have, if you stuck 40 and then, decreased that number of actors in a room in any other situation, you'd probably have people who didn't necessarily get along, but remarkably we all legitimately got along, and that made it a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it was stressful. I mean, this is a situation where it plays into every actor's fear, which is, of course, getting fired. I've never had that fear, but I know these 2 have that a lot. And, so it was weird to be in that zone of, as an actor and a human being, having to sort of dodge those emotional bullets.
I'm not gonna fire you. You're gonna quit. Go on, get out of here.
It was a lot of fun to write. The actual doing it turned out to be a lot more painful than I thought it would be, because the thing about actors, a lot of people don't know this, they're actually human beings. And we wound up hiring these people and starting to like these people and starting to care about these people. And we were playing the same game with them.
You didn't tell him I was coming back?
She did. I said no.
When your extended job interview / reality TV show killed a patient, you lost your veto power. Everybody, this is Dr. Foreman. Does
this mean there's one less slot for us?
In our initial conception, we were going to find 2 new candidates and have Foreman rejoin the team as he does now. You know, and as evidence of how we fell in love with so many, we have 3 candidates and Foreman. One of the reasons why we didn't set out to increase that sort of core group is that in terms of shooting time, to accommodate more actors during those differential diagnosis scenes actually takes longer, and we were not looking to do that, make things more complicated.
You're fired.
Originally, the idea was it'd be so cool to get somebody that everybody knew and then fire them right away.
You want to grab some dinner? Give me a movie?
Because we had so many people, and because we really weren't sure, we felt the audience couldn't be ahead of us. But that is the problem. You know, you set up a game like that that's supposed to last for 7 episodes, and if you've got 3 TV stars in the middle of 27 people that nobody's heard of, everybody knows it's going to be them, so it loses its excitement. But we didn't know who it was going to be, so anybody who claims they were ahead of us is lying. Because literally, we were shooting episodes and we didn't know who the final 3 were going to be.
I think I made, I don't know how many, either 6 or 8 deals with actors that extended over the 8 or 9 episode arc because we genuinely did not know.
Everybody in the staff obviously had different people who they thought, or different characters who they wanted to keep. And so we actually had a meeting once where we put on the board and we all voted.
Yeah. The whole staff ranked them 1 through 5. And then we tallied them up and the averaged them out, and the averages were like all the same.
They were all the same. It was really hard. We were just like, I don't know, life imitating art, or, you know, it became literally Survivor for us to decide who we're gonna keep, because it was just, they were all good. So it was, but unfortunately we had to decide, because we're like, well, he can't have a 5-person or 6-person team. It's just too much. So.
And we actually considered that, but it seemed like such a cheat at the end. If you set up, we got to fire all these people, to just say, oh, we're going to keep, you know. So we were forced.
Sorry, Henry. We had some giggles.
You agreed with everything he said. You finished each other's sentences.
That's why I gotta go. Don't need someone to tell you what you're already thinking.
Funny, I was going to say that.
My wife said, you're crazy. I mean, she wanted me to take the job, and she was like, you're crazy, just knowing who I am. She said, you don't want this job. This is going to make you insane. It's exactly your worst nightmare.
Cole, how's it going with your patient?
Still seeing stuff.
Your house is treating you like crap.
He treats everyone badly.
Yeah, but I heard you're special.
But I sort of felt like I wasn't sure how close to get to anyone, because you didn't know who was staying or who was leaving, and there were so many people, so you sort of felt like, okay, I guess I'll just sort of wait this out and see how it all turns out. And because I wasn't, and Chase wasn't, and yeah, Omar was a little bit, but we weren't really in those scenes. You know, we weren't in the classroom or in the lecture hall where they were sort of sorting all that out. So we weren't working with any of the new actors for a long time.
Take Bosley and the other visible minority to the funeral home. The rest of you young white people, the world is your oyster. An MRI with contrast, EEG, LP, and blood panel. And angels, be careful.
I mean, we were so happy to be in each script. First of all, we were reading each of the new scripts backwards to see if we got fired.
Right.
Yeah. And if we didn't, it was like, yippee, I get to be there. And so you would really relish every moment. And that was, I think, good for us, good for our work, and also good for our attitudes.
But it was also weird to know that the next script was being very carefully vetted, and like nobody was allowed to see it. And if one popped up on the, you know, on the makeup person's table, it was, you know, you'd sort of look at it like, oh my God, is that it?
Hold your fate.
And they'd come up and take it away, and you're not supposed to look at that.
Yeah.
I nominate Amber.
Cutthroat bitch. Rise. You're surprised? Everyone's pick.
There was sort of a 3 or 4 week span where one of us was going to be fired each week. And so we really knew that that phone call was coming, and any time that like Katie wanted to talk to you or David wanted to talk to you was super stressful.
You said get her underwear? I got it.
Your scheme was brilliant. And you're fired.
Eddie was the first person out of that group of 5 of us to go, and it was really weirdly devastating because we'd become so close.
Watching people get kind of picked off the show was very bizarre because many times we had no idea who'd been fired before we sat down for the table read. And I tried not to read the last page because I actually didn't even want to know until the end of the table read is who was leaving, but it was pretty brutal. And so each actor was getting a phone call from the producers 2 days before the read through saying, you know, it's your turn. It's the Grim Reaper.
Amber, please stand.
You didn't call me bitch, is that bad? And the day that I found out that I wasn't coming back was like devastating. I really grew to love being here, and the character that, you know, they were writing for me was such a, doesn't come along every day. It's so specific and fun and juicy and wild, for me at least. And I really loved playing her, so it was like sad to see that end.
If you're gonna work for me, you have to be willing to be wrong, willing to lose. Because you just did. You're fired.
Annie was one of the few that David and I met her outside the office, and she knew the conversation just because she knew that, you know, there's no other reason why David and I would come to talk to her, so it was really tough.
Raise the camera just a little bit. Okay, I think this is it.
Good mark.
And set.
Trauma must have stimulated a pre-existing heart condition.
Autoimmune, congenital anomaly, blood clotting disorder, lead poisoning.
Great, let's explore that. Quick, get around panacea.
We can narrow it down by looking for...
We've got a show that is at its core a procedural show, and we don't want to change what this show is. And the procedure allows you to demonstrate stuff with the characters and to do stuff with the characters, but you've also got to do a lot of medicine in there. And the medicine is absolutely necessary, and that's the essence of the show, but it's the spine on which we hang everything else. But as a result of that, we only have a certain number of pages. It's not a soap opera where it's just all about the relationship. We only have a certain number of pages to deal with that stuff. And we've now got 3 more people on our show than we used to, and I like them all, and it's really going well, but it does become a challenge to give everybody their due.
The rest of you search her apartment. Toxins, heavy metals, drugs, anything that might make her heart race.
What was hard, and we're just sort of, I think, hitting a good place with it, was how to incorporate Cameron Chase and Foreman.
Cysts, synesthesia, heart attack. You guys have got...
Von Hippel-Lindau syndrome. Raises red blood cell count, causes masses on the organs. One of the masses...
In the season when Chase makes his entrance, and he's the one in the top of the OR who gives the diagnosis, it sort of, to me, felt like the boy becomes a man.
This is a closed procedure. Gallery's off limits.
Not to the surgical staff.
What I love about when I see our old cast in this new season, they have more gravity and they seem to have more weight by virtue of the fact that we have these new candidates.
There's still sort of, you know, a respect that Chase has for House's process and how good he is. So he does get dragged back into it occasionally, but he's more sort of on the outside looking in, which is great because it's sort of more, you know, I'm viewing it now. You know, I'm sort of watching the process and sort of being continually frustrated, as I'm sure the new team have been.
I'm kind of jealous of you guys because you guys like are wearing sweatpants and like sneakers, and it's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
It works.
You're an idiot.
The hair where I'm working are both.
Hair makes you look like a hooker. I like it.
It is sort of nice that a lot of the work that I'm doing now as Cameron is a little bit more one-on-one instead of in a huge group and with a patient. But then, you know, at the same time, I do sort of miss the group dynamic of you know, Omar and Jesse and I have spent 3 years spending so much time together that every time we sort of pass each other, we're like, oh, how are you? You know, it's like we feel like little lost puppies or something, you know, without the three of us together.
Both of us, we just like to go to the writer's room and sit there and distract everyone for a while until they kick us out.
The last thing I ever want to do is work. I'm the least ambitious man I've ever met in my life. I don't want to work at all. And when I read the scripts now, the less I'm in, the better for me. And because I love sleeping and reading and not pretending I'm someone else with makeup on my face.
From the very first episode, the entire original cast really came out and introduced themselves and made us feel very, very included. So we didn't have to deal with that sort of awkwardness, I think.
Olivia is a genius. Peter, he's okay. Cal, trash. Terrible actor. That's all you need to know. See, it's like this. It's very easy to remember. Olivia, Peter, Cal.
Olivia and I are fine with the medical jargon. Cal seems to have the most trouble with it.
Some trouble.
Just
kidding.
Autoimmune, congenital autoimmune. Sorry.
I remember my first really, really difficult medical term. It was in the surgery. I think one of you, I don't know if you guys were in the scene, and it didn't even have to be right because the surgical mask was over my mouth. But I was so nervous, just sweating and couldn't figure out what I was supposed to be doing, and I'm supposed to be doing surgery, but it looks like I'm eating dinner. My arms are just doing that. And I had to say, alveolar hydatid disease. It's all the organs. It doesn't sound as hard as the others, like cryoglobulinemia or encephalitis or pneumococcus.
You win.
But it was the most difficult thing I'd ever done, and it was one of our first episodes, and I was so desperate, and I don't even think I got it right. I think they probably just fixed it because my mouth was covered anyway, but I was like, oh God. And I wasn't listening to anybody else in the scene. All I could think was alveolar hydatid.
Mine is the synesthesia new. That was my first medical. That was actually the first thing my character ever said.
Is the synesthesia new?
And I got endless from her about it because I just couldn't synesthesia.
Synesthesia is hard. It's hard.
Cal, what was yours?
They didn't give me medical stuff for a very long time. Do you remember this?
Yes, I rest my case.
The whole first season, Kuttner doesn't have very much to do. Okay. So I'm curious to see.
And have you asked yourself why? Is there any introspection about that?
People love your character. You don't want to change them because then you change them, they're a different character. Who knows if people will love them. On the other hand, you have to be true to them and they have to grow. On the other hand, 3 hands so far, people don't grow. People don't change that much. And on TV, you want to demonstrate that. You want to just get little glimpses of changes. And it's less about change and more about striving to change. Trying to figure out how you should be and how you should interact with the world.
You're antisocial, so you assume I'm antisocial?
How about if I just get naked and you shut up?
If I thought I could get you naked, I would have led with that.
The title Frozen notwithstanding, I think there was a tingle of warmth in that for House. But then again, I think that makes him uncomfortable. House is a creature of habit. And I think that sudden prospect of human contact, I think, was probably nice though it was. I think it was, at the same time, rather disconcerting, threatening even. That means change. That means looking at things differently. That means re-examining how I live, how I House. I'm not House. I'm an actor who plays House. I keep having to emphasize that.
I made her take them off like I should have. I've seen the toe and solved the case days ago.
But you don't care about her.
Of course not. House doesn't care about anyone.
Just a bunch of things we've wanted to do for a long time just came together. We wanted to get Wilson into a relationship.
Cutthroat bitch?
I call her Amber.
We wanted to get him into a different type of relationship than he's used to, and we wanted to bring Amber back. We thought she was a natural match to be Wilson's girlfriend. It seemed surprising and yet made sense, which is always what we're striving to do. And we wanted to challenge the House-Wilson friendship. So those 3 things are all serviced by what was happening there.
You like that she has no regard for consequences. You like that she can humiliate someone if it serves. Oh my God. You're sleeping with me.
Well, the Wilson House Amber thing, it's as old as time. House becomes more and more jealous, essentially. It's not his finest hour. It leads him into behavior of which he's probably
Not all that proud. Went by your hotel this morning. They told me you moved out. You moved in with CB?
No, apparently I moved in with you.
From the very beginning, when we shot the pilot of this show, one thing that Hugh said was it's interesting that Wilson's the one person on the show who A, has no control over him, and B, who he has no control over. There's no power in our relationships. I'm not above him and he's not above me. So we actually, I think it's a very smart person to put in the show, that character, especially when the central character is a guy like House. And that's kind of coming home to roost now. Those are relationships you choose. You weren't hired and you didn't hire, you chose this person to be your friend. Those are harder.
House and Wilson, they start to, not grow apart exactly, but they have to acknowledge that it is not just, they're not Butch and Sundance anymore. I need you to sleep with Wilson.
Good morning.
He's involved with an inappropriate woman.
I got this call, and it was Katie Jacobs and David Shore together calling me on my cell phone, and I remember I was on the street. I had walked into a store to go shopping.
You wanted to see me?
We called Annie, and we made it a point to sort of say, we want you back, and we're so excited, but you're going to die very quick, because we didn't want to sort of bring her along and toy with her.
And I almost fell over on the sidewalk. I was so happy. So then, this job turned into a job of a lifetime.
I think we had one episode as series regulars before the strike.
We shot 3.
We shot 3, but 1 aired before the strike. Is that what happened?
No.
We were barely in the door.
We basically, it was the 12 episodes that we shot, and then essentially the writers are going on strike and we're shooting down production, and it was the weirdest thing because we were celebrating the fact that we now were on the show full time, but couldn't work on it. So it was like a 4-month waiting period of, when do we get to go back and do this again?
Liver failure means whatever this thing is, it's spreading despite the fact that she's frozen.
Hepatic and heart failure could mean.
The strike cost us 8 episodes. We would have done 24 otherwise. We're doing 16. 3 months gone. After the strike ended, Fox did not want to bring us back. They wanted us to just start working on season 5. But it was important to us that we finish the story in some way. So we insisted on getting 4 more episodes.
Where are you going?
Taking Wilson for a drink.
Episode 15 of this season is one of the best episodes I've ever read of this show. It was really an extraordinary episode and very daring in a lot of ways. I actually take all my clothes off.
Well, not all.
Well, down to only my panties.
Oh, that word.
That's a sad state of affairs when that's the most interesting thing that's happened to your character all year. But no, that's not true. There's also some other interesting things.
No, it is true.
Originally, this was going to be our Super Bowl episode. So, big bus crash, lots of cool effects. We're spending a fortune on it. We were supposed to spend a fortune on it for the Super Bowl. It's kind of neat now that it's the season ender.
It constantly amazes me how they manage to do this. I mean, I'm not saying that we get it right all the time and that the shows are impeccable. They're plainly not impeccable. We make all sorts of mistakes every day. But that is because what they are trying to do is an incredibly difficult thing.
And action.
You might have killed her already. This is exactly what I said would happen. Now it's in her brain.
Brain involvement.
The idea that House can't save her is such a terrifying feeling for the whole team, for Wilson, for House himself, that, this is something that he's incapable of doing, that there's nothing he can do, there's no brilliant idea he could have, there's not going to be the epiphany that people expect sometime after Act 4. It's not going to happen, and that's why I think it's such a brilliantly written episode, that the audience will be so shocked.
He is the attending. You are the family. Go and be with the patient. I feel like there's so much left to explore about House precisely because of what David and Hugh bring to the character and all the writers. You're never really sure when it comes to House. There's so much going on inside of there.
Hey, Mark.
I have no idea what's going to happen next season. I've completely given up wondering. It's like nobody either they know and they're really good at keeping secrets, or we're all clueless.
Sorry? I have ideas for, beginnings of seasons, but I definitely don't want to tell you.
Up to ask the guys in the The folks in the writer's room. I wish I had some idea.
I have absolutely no idea where House is going to be.
I don't know. They don't tell us. We honestly don't know. Writers don't tell actors anything.
Maybe we won't come back. Maybe that's it now.
Well, I'm gonna knock on the wood.
No, I mean, we love doing the comedy and that stuff, and we love having fun with that. But House and Wilson, we obviously left season 4 on this huge question mark for them, and we are going to explore that. We are not going to shortchange that. We want to take that somewhere. We'll deal with House and Wilson, and then after that,